Alrighty, so I'm gonna be showing you guys just my impressions of the Legion Go. This is kind of like a personal review. It wasn't sent to me. It wasn't gifted to me. I went out and purchased this thing. I'm not advertised by anybody, so I'm just giving them my honest opinion on it. My main reason for buying this device primarily was because of the size. I had a Steam Deck, and I really enjoyed the Steam Deck. Something that always bothered me about the Steam Deck was just primarily because it was Linux based, and Linux based, that in and of itself isn't necessarily a problem. I'm not trash talking Linux in any way, shape, or form, but just like a lot of emulator apps is usually what I go to. I usually use these handhelds like on lunch breaks or like when I'm on the go. I'll typically play like old school games or the occasional AAA title if I can. Nothing really too crazy with the machine. Just primarily the screen size and the resolution is what I went for, as well as it being Windows 10. So when I had my Steam Deck, it was just always like a pain in the butt to try to get anything to work. Retro achievements always had an issue. The emulators, it was just a giant pain to get anything kind of like set up. You couldn't have certain applications, having Epic installed, having Battle.net installed, just pretty much anything except for Steam just didn't really play very well with this system at all. You always had to use Wine, and when Wine had an issue, just God forbid you try to fix that, it would just be like a nightmare trying to use anything that wasn't Steam. Granted, the Steam Deck is super popular. There's a bunch of YouTube videos out there to get everything installed, which is nice. It is helpful. But it was just a constant headache. And when this thing came out, I believe this thing came out in November. I was really impressed with it, and I was kind of like on the fence about it. I'm like, I already have a Steam Deck. I don't really need one. I mean, it is more powerful, has 144 hertz, the 2K screen quality, still 16 by 10, which is still that goofy thing, touch screen, all the stuff, right? And then I went into a Best Buy. They had one on display, and I like held it in my hands, and I was like, wow, this thing feels great. It is extremely heavy compared to other devices. That was one downside that I didn't kind of like about it. I knew it was going to be heavier because it's way bigger, of course, but if you're kind of one of the people that like lay on their back or like they want to just hold it comfortably, it's pretty bulky. It's extremely heavy. That's and the ergonomics on it aren't like atrocious. They're okay. I will admit that the Steam Deck probably feels a lot better. A lot of other devices feel a lot better. This one is, I mean, it gets the job done, but not super comfortable. I'll admit that's not my favorite part about it, is its bulk and its comfort, but something that's cool with it is it has this little kickstand. You can prop it up, detach the controllers, and then you can just set it on something and play it that way, kind of like how a Nintendo Switch functions, which is pretty cool. The battery life on it is really good. If you use like the higher screen resolution and you use 144 hertz, and you're playing like more graphic intensive video games, you will notice like the battery will go down quite a bit. Usually when I'm playing PS2 games, stuff like that, I'll keep it at a smidge above 1080p. That seems to have like a good battery life and quality kind of aspect. This thing is pretty capable, honestly. Let me show you guys one more thing before I get in there. But something that I personally really enjoy is the Emu Deck. It was something that was created for the Steam Deck, and I really loved it. It made setting up the unit significantly easier. You have all this stuff that you can manage, all these emulators that you can install. It makes it simple. So like for somebody who isn't like super familiar with emulators, it does make it a lot easier. Don't know why I can't drag down on that, but let's see. But yeah, you can control all these things. Like if you hit the PCX2, you can reset the configuration. It'll tell you if you have the BIOS installed. When you're setting this up, it asks you a bunch of easy questions like, hey, what do you want this to look like? What do you want that to look like? I believe, let's see, yeah. Like you can have the autosave, bezels, classic AR, screen size, LCD, CRTs, all that stuff. The coolest thing is, in my personal opinion, is the Steam ROM manager that this application has. Basically what this does is it parses the games, and just adds as long as you put everything in the correct folders that it asks you to put them in, it will essentially build like a gigantic list for you, and you can select all these different like bezels. Like most of them look the same, but you can have all these different kind of icons essentially imported into Steam. And once you get the emulator set up and all the games that you want put in there, when you launch Steam, you will have all those icons just already built into Steam. So and then how I have mine set up is I tell it to launch into Steam big picture mode the second it turns on, and then from there I can just hit all my games and hit pretty much anything I want. So you just go over to the library, install locally, and you'll have all your emulators and computer games there as well, with all these like nice and tight icons. That's something I personally like really appreciate about the EmuDeck application. So I want to launch Spyro, I can, and it'll pre-launch the emulator, pre-launch the game. It'll do all that for me. I've been using, let's see, Emulation Station. This is another cool thing I believe that it comes with. I've been using this one for my games primarily. And you can customize like the layout. I like this one because you can have like the box art and all this. It's a little bit more cleaner if you're not a big fan of how the Steam does it. This way, I kind of been using it this way for a while. And it runs games like, I think the PS3 is the most intensive emulator that it has. I'll show you guys that real quick, how that kind of looks. Takes a second to launch. And another thing is since it's using a Windows platform, if you're ever having problems running something, chances are you can find a fix for it decently well, since a lot of these emulator applications and pretty much everything else is typically designed for Windows first, then others. That was another thing I disliked using other handhelds, is when I would run into a specific problem, it was because it was running off of Linux, and not a lot of other people have experienced the same problem, and just trying to find a fix for it just would be kind of impossible, honestly. So you try and try for like hours and hours and hours, and it just wouldn't be enjoyable. Now, I'll admit with this thing's definitely not like a plug and play system either. There's a lot of pre-setup that you have to do as well. I'll admit the Steam Deck does that really well, where it's just like you just load it up, you're good to go. It already has the Steam OS. But with the Legion Go, once you have like your UI of choice set up, plugins, whatever, you get the emulators set up to run how you prefer them to run, whether that's a high frame rate or high resolution. It's pretty much lock and load from there. Now, I think this game is probably one of the games that struggle the most with the current setup I have, because I do prefer to still run it at the 1080p. It does a pretty good job, I'd say. It's between 30 and 60 FPS. I played around with the settings like a little bit. I configured them basically to just get it to how it is right now, and it's pretty enjoyable. It's pretty functional. With the PS3 emulator, it has slowdowns. Granted, this game is also not like the best game to emulate. Ratchet and Clank games are always typically like the hardest to emulate. But just to show you guys that this stuff, it does run pretty well even with the PS3 emulator. Everything else from there is a breeze. Best way that I found out to exit a game is you just swipe up from here, press and hold, and then close window. Once you have emu deck and all that set up, that's been kind of the easiest way that I set things up. PS1 games, they look honestly amazing. I'll boot this one up just to show you guys real quick. I guess while we're waiting, I'll show you guys just a quick size comparison. There's a lot better videos like online, I'm sure, of size comparisons, but as you can see, I have my phone kind of right above it. It's taken pretty much a decent size of the picture here. This is the PlayStation Portal in comparison, which it's still really wide, but its screen only goes to about here. Whereas with this guy, it's still just as wide, but its screen is all the way up here. Yeah, as you guys can see, it's pretty crisp. Pretty much anything that I put on it or run on it, just honest to God, runs real smooth. This thing is pretty much an emulation beast. It runs pretty much anything really well. I'll load up something else for you guys, and I'll show you guys kind of like what like a regular game kind of runs like. Let's see. I think Halo would be a good decision. So I got it at the 1080p, 144 hertz. I got the frame monitor on for you guys.
There's two of us.
Let's see. This is super dark in this area. But she's running at about 100 FPS. 9 milliseconds. Fans are definitely kicked on, but that's kind of what you can expect. You'll have to really play around with settings to get them to run at like even higher frames. But most of the games that I've played on here run pretty good. If you guys have like a recommendation of something you guys want to see, if I have it, I can install it, and I can try to show it to you guys on how it runs. Let's see. Forgot how to play this game. But yeah, pretty much 1080p, high frame rate. Pretty smooth. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this thing for like competitive gaming, but it can be an option. It does. I mean, you could lower a lot of settings, lower the resolution, and you can get it to try to play those more graphic intensive games. But honestly, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Playing games with mods is pretty fun. Emulators is pretty fun. Like all the different games you can play. It's probably like one of my favorite handhelds that I can say. It another feature that I like about it is with the case here. When you have it like in the case, it has 2 USB slots, so you can plug it in while it's in the case. So like if you're on the go, you don't have to like take it all the way out to kind of mess around with it. You don't have to do none of that. Another thing that it has is it has like this AMD software. I have a NVIDIA GPU for like my home computer, so I'm not super familiar with it. But from what I've seen with this unit right here, you can make games do a lot more for a lot less. You can customize everything. It has the AMD super resolution. Fluid frames is really helpful. It didn't always have that. A lot of people were complaining about that for like the longest time, that it didn't have that. They did update it in a release. There's all these different settings you can mess with. Another thing too is they updated the Legion Go gaming space application, which would be with this button or with this button, and you can swap them around, because I like to have this as a select and start, and then these just kind of over here. But they updated the UI on this. It looks a little bit more prettier. You can have other games from other applications in here, so it's kind of like a general across the board thing. The settings, you can customize them even further. You can customize pretty much everything. The fan curve, that was another thing at launch that a lot of people didn't like. A lot of this stuff you can kind of see with this basic menu right here. You can customize it just like on the fly. If you're playing like an old Super Nintendo game, or just something that's not graphic intensive, you can put it on power saving mode. It'd probably play it just fine. And make the battery last a lot longer. You can have a micro USB up here. You can shove like up to a 1 terabyte on there. Playing games on there isn't bad. I obviously wouldn't put like a massive game on there. Probably wouldn't be the best. But yeah, you can have this boot into the Legion space instead if you don't like it. You can turn off all the lights, which is what I do to make the battery last a lot longer. You can customize the gamepad, the lights. There's even a dead zone. It didn't have that initially at first, which a lot of people were bugging about. Everyone hated that you could not adjust the dead zone on this thing. But with the new update they rolled around, you don't have to mess around with that. You can adjust it, because a lot of people Like that was probably one of its major number one complaints. So they have been hearing people. A lot of the things that people have been complaining about, it's solved that with software updates or this update, you know. Plus the UI looks a lot better than what it did. But yeah, my overall impression of this thing is it is a beast. It is nifty. It has some solid features. Personally, not a lot of people out there mention it for its screen size. That is personally why I bought it. Like being able to have a significantly larger screen size to play like my favorite old school video games on it was probably like the biggest thing to me. Like that was the number one most important feature, and reason why I bought it was because it has improved hardware, run things smoother with a higher resolution. Not only that, but the Steam Deck only has like a 720p screen resolution, which honest to God, like, well, no, it's 800p. I am wrong on that. It's 800p, and it does a pretty good job at like attempting to make it look good. You know, like it does a good job at just downsampling, upsampling, because it has such a lower screen resolution, but it has some decent hardware and it runs things pretty smooth. But I'm just, you know, like 4K, I have a 4K TV at home, and I'm really, really accustomed to playing retro games in like a higher resolution, just seeing them like in a whole brand new light, you know. It just, being able to have that is really, really important to me personally. Not everybody is on the same page with that, but because some people are like, oh, it's old school, it won't really like matter anyways, but to me it kind of does. That and retro achievements is another big thing to me personally. I want to play old school video games with achievements, and this thing doesn't have a single problem with that. Texture packs are also really, really easy to install. You can, if there's a texture pack for a game, you can put it on there. You can play it in the 16. You can have it on 16:9 and then just tell the emulator to stretch it a little bit. Not a super big deal, but like, yeah, you guys can see like this is a GameCube game. This isn't even the Wii U HD version, but it's a GameCube game. Texture pack, stretched it to fit the full screen size, and it's great. Something I didn't like about the Steam Deck is since it does have a 16:10 thing, you can't tell certain things just to stretch because it's just not supported with the Linux operating system. Who knows? Maybe they fixed it by now. Maybe they've done something to eliminate that issue. But my experience with the Steam Deck wasn't terrible. The ROG Allies and the other units, they're not like atrocious. I've seen them in person. I haven't had them personally. Their screen size, it's smaller, I feel like, and I just don't like that. But being able to just prop up with just this massive screen is really, really, really enjoyable. You're gonna pay for it because it's heavy. If you're running on the high resolution, your battery's not gonna last forever. But the flexibility that this thing has is pretty immense. Just another size comparison. This right here, this is an Xbox controller, so it's about yay big. I can't fit the whole thing here. Let me adjust real quick. And just to show you guys just how freaking huge it is, this is the Legion Go right here. This is it pretty much compared to a PlayStation Plus, Switch, Xbox One controller, and then of course some AA batteries. So like, as you can see, this guy is like almost 4 times the size of this guy. And the PlayStation, it's big, but it's not it's not as big. Like putting it kind of like right above, it's as wide, but the screen size is definitely a lot more. So if you guys are considering getting it, just know it is a Goliath of a handheld unit. It's definitely kind of hefty. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about the PlayStation Portal is it's super light. And switches are also about I'd say surprisingly the PlayStation Portal is a little bit lighter than the Switch. So if you know how one of those feel in your hand, this guy's definitely a lot more than that. So I hope you guys appreciated the video. This is just kind of me rambling about pros and cons that I feel like, just kind of my own personal review. Thank you.